Raiffeisen always felt that people had to be at the centre of all political and social activities. His greatest talent was to provide a vision to people. I think that Friedrich Wilhelm Raiffeisen was an entrepreneurial pioneer. Amalia Raiffeisen had an enormous task to master during her life.
We certainly strive for a more equitable society, also by means of cooperatives.
A cooperative is, per se, a democratic organisation. We're not experiencing a financial crisis, we're experiencing a social crisis.
Many are able to achieve what one person can't.
Amalia!
Where have you been?
Just at Matilda's.
The representatives will be here any minute. We still have work to do on the papers.
Can't Carolina or Bertha do that for once?
Only you can do that. I need you. All right, how do I look?
I get asked time and again what he was like, how it all happened. He was born in 1818 and lived in eventful times, full of changes. Many people had to fight for their lives.
Man muss sich das Land damals völlig anders vorstellen, als es heute ist.
You have to see the countryside in a totally different light than today. The rural areas were poor, there were people who couldn't write or read. There were all kinds of dependencies in the country, and epidemics and famines. The supply of basic necessities was poor. It finally all built up to one big, big question. The rural question.
He wanted to materially improve the lives of farmers, of the little people. Cooperation, solidarity, self-help. For him, that was the key.
Raiffeisen ist mit Sicherheit nicht der Erfinder der Genossenschaften.
Raiffeisen certainly didn't invent cooperatives. Cooperatives are the archetype of human cooperation, so to speak. But it was Raiffeisen's great achievement to bring this idea into modern times and turn it into such a practical form of rural cooperatives that they still work today. Raiffeisen's ideas are the model for cooperative businesses. These cooperative structures can be found all over the world. Today, 1 billion people worldwide are organised in cooperatives. Because a cooperative is the optimal type of business when several people have a common goal or a common problem, and one person alone cannot achieve this goal or solve this problem, but together they can. Everybody in a cooperative gets a vote, independent of his or her financial stake. A cooperative is a self-help organisation, with self-responsibility of and self-governance by its members. The basic rule is one for all and all for one.
Der Winter 1846-47 war
The winter of 1846-1847 saw the last big famine in Central Europe. And right during that winter, Raiffeisen found his great task. Raiffeisen undertook to procure grain from other parts of the Reich, found people to underwrite the loans he took out for that task, and founded the first cooperative association of its kind, the Bread Society of Weierbusch.
My father's bread society also built its own bakery, where bread was baked and sold. At 27, he became mayor of a desperately poor region in the German Westerwald, near Frankfurt and Cologne. That was in 1845, 1 year before I was born. At the same time, he started to grapple with the miserable situation of the people in this region. He couldn't bear to just sit and wait.
Er hat sich die Infrastruktur, sprich Straßenbau, gekümmert.
He took care of infrastructure, the roads that is, because he was convinced that when the farmers up here produced something on their fields or in their barns, they would have to sell it, and they needed roads for that. He took care of water supply because he said that bad water led to disease. He made sure that schools were built, that education could take place.
Ohne Bildung keine Zukunft.
Without education, there's no future. That's what he actually said. Does this still hold today? Education and infrastructure as the basis for social justice?
We work with a lot of illiterate women, and we convey to them, with drawings and pictures, the same contents that is normally conveyed in adult education. That is how we try to raise their education to a higher level. When you educate a woman, you educate a whole family.
Who is the person who bears all of this? And that is the poor woman.
Emily was his childhood sweetheart, and she stayed with him for better and worse, through all that work and the many moves to ever bigger mayor's offices. And we were supposed to become like him, religious, charitable, industrious.
Ja, ich denke zum Umgang mit den Kindern.
Well, his relationship with his children. I think that he certainly demanded a lot from them, that the family atmosphere was tense and goal-oriented.
In dieser Familie herrschte.
Amalia, the to-do list. Don't forget about the garden work. Carolina, you're doing the kitchen chores. Here is the list. Rudolph, you will accompany your mother to the farmer Thiel to bring him the collected donations. Carry out your tasks faithfully. Be industrious and diligent. When I get back, we will all take a nice trip. Emily, I won't be here much over the next couple of days. I have to visit the small villages and the district commission in Koblenz. I am sorry that I am away so much. But you know that I love you and the children very much. Godspeed. Emily.
Father was then assigned to the next office in a bigger town.
In seiner zweiten Bürgermeisterei in Flammersfeld ist
In his second mayoral position in Flammersfeld, he started to solve a structural problem. Many of the farmers were literally robbed of their livelihoods because they weren't seen as creditworthy.
dass sie als nicht kreditwürdig galten.
Die Bauern haben noch nicht gelernt.
The farmers had not yet learned how to think as entrepreneurs, how to be successful on the market. They had to learn that, and that was a difficult task.
Das war ein harter Weg.
There was a whole system of loan sharks with short-term, high-interest loans and credit lines. There were interest rates of 80%, unthinkable today. That way, these poor people were pushed further into dependency.
In die Abhängigkeit getrieben.
Raiffeisen hat dann
Raiffeisen said, we simply have to give the farmers affordable loans.
Kredite geben.
The members of the association know each other and guarantee for each other. What one can't achieve, many can. Don't they, Amalia?
His cooperative credit unions actually succeeded in putting the power of the capital to the use of the people. My father was convinced that the willingness to cooperate was the key.
There is this quote that the success of humanity lies in our willingness to cooperate and not in our competitiveness. That is a great quote because it contradicts the liberal dogma, and modern capitalism is based on the liberal dogma, and the liberal dogma is competition is everything.
I'm not a big fan of the free market economy, or let's say what is called the free market economy in our society, not because of any ideological reasons, but because I've experienced it. And my experience is that there's always someone in the market who defines the rules in his sense, and that something like free markets simply don't exist. We used to say that we have to be decent to each other. Nowadays, we need rules and regulations from the ECB and the financial regulatory authorities, thousands of pages. But in essence, these rules are only supposed to secure that we treat each other decently.
When I was 17, my mother died. She had a weak heart. And my work at home and at the mayor's office grew ever more, partly due to the fact that my father had serious eye and nerve ailments. In response to the legal complaint by Dr. Epstein,
Where, Amalia?
Caroline, they're leaving.
Later. Yes?
Nennt seine älteste Tochter Amalie.
He didn't call his oldest daughter Amalia his secret secretary for nothing, and he was forever grateful for what she did. In my view, Raiffeisen's achievements, his calling, his legacy would be unthinkable without Amalia.
Work we did, ever more. My father's eyesight deteriorated.
Well now, Amalia, read it to me.
A letter from the provincial government in Koblenz.
Oh.
Based on a recently commissioned expert's opinion, we have to inform you that...
What is it, Amalia? Why have you stopped reading? Inform you what?
that he himself does not read postal matters, including secret decrees addressed to him, but rather has his daughter read them to him. Thus, it is impossible to assign him the burdensome duties of mayor henceforth.
Papa.
It's all right. It's all right, Amalia. It wasn't really possible to continue like that for much longer. Our good Lord God obviously foresees some other path for me at 47.
Die Religion ist ein Grundzug seines Wesens. Die ist eben
Religion is ingrained in his being. It is always present. I dare say that his faith gave him strength. I believe he interpreted everything through his faith, and he saw his task in life from a position of faith.
Father now completely delved into his task of providing credit unions for as many people as possible. He had fine-tuned his system and was ready to make the step from a charitable society to a cooperative. People in need now became members with joint liability.
wer ein Darlehen haben will,
Anyone who wants to get a loan, get support, has to become a member of our organisation, because that person then identifies with the lender.
mit dem Darlehensträger.
Raiffeisen hat es so gemacht,
Raiffeisen literally built on the fact that out in the village after church on Sunday, people went to the local tavern. And there, everybody knew everybody. That means you know the person applying for a loan. You know his credit rating, you knew his family, and that is how you could judge his creditworthiness.
hat so die Kreditwürdigkeit eingeschätzt.
Raiffeisen always said that you have to be able to see the church steeple from the credit union. That's a wonderful message, actually, especially in these times of our current financial crisis, where no bank ever sees a church steeple anymore, and where the money is sent out into the big, wide world in hopes that it will carry interest, but instead, never returns.
Solidarity in a group basically works for two reasons. Because people have the feeling that they themselves will benefit from engaging with that group, and because they have the feeling that they are part of a community, share the same values, and that is why they engage with that group, and why they feel that they are furthering the community, the whole society with that.
I am, in fact, a big fan of the concept of cooperatives. That has a lot to do with solidarity, with a collective. What convinces me most about this system, and what can be applied, I think, to a lot of situations in life, is the automatic stabilisation which is created by the fact that the cooperative member is, at the same time, owner and customer of the cooperative. That means when the owner hurts the customer, they hurt themselves, and likewise when the customer hurts the owner. This system has, in fact, let's call it a self-stabilizer, which cannot be commonly found in capitalism.
In 1866, we published Father's book on his system of credit unions.
The most essential responsibility of each member is his liability, which is a joint one. I call that the all for one and one for all liability.
This book was nothing other than a how-to guide for creating your own credit union quickly.
Eine Genossenschaft gründen kann.
In 1880, Martin Fassbender joined us to work in Father's Cooperative Association. He lived with us, and finally, there was someone to take some of the burden off me. We, Father, his staff, Fassbender and I, further pushed our cooperative endeavours. For him, this was a path to basic and permanent social change and improvement.
What is the distribution of wealth around the globe like today? If you want to see Raiffeisen as a reformer, which in fact he was, then you have to see him, compared to the revolutionary Karl Marx, as a socially conservative reformer, as a Christian socialist. i.e., under no circumstance did he try to change or even topple the current social system, but rather he wanted to improve society within the system in order to help people.
Die Gesellschaft verbessern, den Menschen auch zu helfen.
By bringing your combined forces into a self-sustaining movement, we will achieve prolific improvements. That is how the lower classes can work to rise to the middle class. That is an innovation. It is for your best. Trust me.
We will in any case arrive at a fairer society, also in part via cooperatives, via the commitment of each individual. You should never lose sight of how the society as a whole develops.
Denn mir scheinen Genossenschaften keine Alternative.
Cooperatives don't seem to be an alternative to the financial markets. They are, per se, too weak financially, and they sooner or later succumb to the very same rules and effects. But they seem to be an alternative within capitalism. I think that the benefit for the people should be the prime objective. I think that the current constellation will lead to an increased division in society between the poor and the rich, between people with opportunities and people without.
Father's credit union system was immensely successful and spread quickly throughout the whole country. But there were also critical voices, within the unions themselves and from government offices.
To Dr. Weidenhammer. We have shown utter and complete tolerance, while you and your friends are doing the exact opposite.
Tolerance. What a joke.
Indeed. Tolerance. Even toward the destructive efforts and agitations directed at some representatives of the Reichstag.
Agitations? Justified criticism, I should say.
Accepting criticism, letting other viewpoints stand, was difficult for him, particularly in light of the success of his cooperatives.
Auf den ersten Blick, wenn ich das etwas salopp sage.
At first glance, a cooperative is, loosely said, a vexing organisation. Because it's clear from the beginning that such a cooperative will never have an elite centre from where one can dictate what the people have to do.
Leuten vorschreiben kann, was sie zu tun haben.
Forming an opinion sometimes takes a lot longer than in a centralised institution. But once it has been formed, once decisions have been made, they hold and are carried by everyone. It is emancipatory, participatory, it is liberal, and it gives you creative powers.
Genossenschaften funktionieren so, dass
Cooperatives work in a way that each person has one vote. This vote does not depend on the financial stake. In this sense, cooperatives are something like democratic organisations. Each member decides what happens and what does not happen within the cooperative. That is the cooperative approach. For some countries in Eastern Europe, for example, cooperative structures in the media sector, especially in electronic media, would be a great condition for people to show and enable democracy.
Fassbender is doing well, isn't he?
Yes. I'm happy that he returns today. His absence is sorely obvious in the household. After we got at each other so badly.
You do that to everyone.
Yeah. But we have become friends in the meantime.
In 1881, Martin Fassbender, father and I jointly founded a commercial retail enterprise, which was to market the products of several cooperatives, and we set up a printing shop which could publish father's cooperative magazine. Martin became Father's deputy. Father's cooperative organizations became more and more successful.
But what is the adequate and correct measure of success?
We
have all manoeuvred ourselves into this situation in which, sociologists call this financialization, in which, in principle, money has become a false god, an all-determining factor for everything that we do. And in college, when we study business, we learn the properties of money. That is, money as a means and as a measure of value, a means of exchange. What nobody tells us is that money can be a fetish. And in the meantime, money has become the measure of all things, and that's beyond any proportion. I think we should all really reconsider and concentrate more on what happens with the people with which we interact, where there are values that cannot be measured in monetary terms. Raiffeisen proposed not to distribute any profits, any dividends. He was firmly convinced that if you distribute profits, you won't have the opportunity to shape the future, and you won't have the money to give loans to people in difficult times if you've already distributed profits. Raiffeisen has always been a group of companies based on economic principles. You will have to allow members to buy financial interests in the cooperative. That's also what the law on cooperatives says. We have to be able to accept criticism. Null, Thiel and Weidenhammer do make some valid points. Our system should change. Everyone must be able to share in the profits. Exactly. The unions in Hesse have already split up over this. Here, in Westphalia, people also want to take a different direction.
Gentlemen, once and for all, we will not distribute profits. This is not a profit-making industrial undertaking, but solely a charitable enterprise. The system works precisely like that because I have devised it that way with years of experience.
He had to learn from that for economic reasons, and in order to put an end to the internal fighting, he finally agreed that profits would be distributed.
His excellent contacts to his political mentors and to influential officers in the state government helped Father to quickly spread credit unions throughout all of Central Europe.
The situation was the same all over Europe. Something had to happen. In the German-speaking region, it was primarily Raiffeisen who successfully changed things. Raiffeisen wrote, "What we have developed in the Westerwald and the Rhine regions is so fruitful that it has already taken hold in Austria-Hungary, Switzerland, Italy, the Netherlands, and I am convinced," he wrote, "will also be useful to the people in Russia."
Delegations from all over the world came to us to Hedesdorf to export Father's system to places like South America, Japan, and India.
It's useless to tell people to cooperate. You can create the circumstances in which they want to do it, but you can't. The impulse to cooperate is something that has to come from them. It's a very important thing. In other words, the people are left alone with each other. But it's enormously effective because people are taking ownership, as we would say in English, of the problem. They're not following anymore. So they're organized up to a point, and then the organizer disappears.
Father's eyesight deteriorated. The more successful his associations, retail cooperatives, and credit unions became, the more worried he became about their ideals.
Christian, neighborly love, Martin. There is nothing to discuss. God has commissioned us to further the moral education of the people. The associations, procurement of money, the alleviation of material distress are not an end. They are only a means to an end.
The cooperatives do, in fact, have a material goal, and a very successful one, mind you. Furthering morale can't be an end. We must not put Christian action in first place and force that upon our members.
No! No! The supreme director of all our cooperations is the good Lord. Charity and Christian love are the highest goals, the basis for society. We have to guide the right path as a central office and a council and turn Christian principles into action and truth. I am telling you, these are not ideas or assumptions. It is my deepest conviction, based on facts. Irrefutably.
Es ist so ähnlich wie bei Sparkassen, dass schon mal bestimmte...
Certain types of business are out of the question for credit unions and cooperative banks. Things like extensive self-dealing, speculation and the like. I think that in this Raiffeisen idea there is a certain amount of, let's call it, rooting in your region, which, in a globalized world, will be met with tensions.
Die natürlich in einer globalisierten Welt auf Spannungen stößt.
Nachdem die Organisation im Land...
Since the organisation has a lot of separate units throughout the country, but the joint market share is relatively big, it does play an important role in society.
Spielt sie auch eine Rolle in der Gesellschaft.
As far as his strength permitted, Father travelled as a consultant and advisor. His movement, the association, was now widely spread and rested on a solid foundation.
I'd like to talk to your father about us.
I don't know whether now is the right time for that. His condition has deteriorated again. His eyes and the headaches. Hadn't we better wait until he's gone on vacation to recover and then talk to him?
Yes, no, now. I can't stand it anymore. Dictation and writing from morning till late.
He can't do it himself.
And the retail company? And the new issue of the book? Every day we take walks at noon and read to him in the evening. Where's your life? Where's our life together?
Yes, that would be nice. Just the two of us.
Sicherlich ist Raiffeisen bewusst gewesen, was...
Raiffeisen must have known what he asked of his daughter, and she was absolutely indispensable for Raiffeisen. In that sense, he certainly exploited her.
Sicher auch dann ausgenutzt.
Raiffeisen hat die Lebensentwicklung...
Raiffeisen did limit the life choices of Amalia, and we cannot look into Raiffeisen's soul, or in Amalia's.
In der Frage von Raiffeisen blicken, auch nicht von Amalie.
No, I cannot allow a marriage. I still have so much important work to do, Amalia, in which you are indispensable. Also, the retail company cannot be run without you. I need you here. With me. Amalia stays.
Papa!
It is God's will. Our task. I'm sorry, but there is no other way.
Fassbender left the joint company, the cooperative, our house, and we continued to work.
Are cooperatives really the efficient, sustainable and socially relevant business entities that Raiffeisen envisioned? With our knowledge, we are able to build cooperative economic structures all over the world, and also expand and support them.
Cooperatives are an excellent mechanism because they are democratic and voluntary. That makes them ideal for our work with women, which can then change the life of their families and their communities.
We do see around the world that there is a commitment to prevent absolute poverty, and you can see in the numbers that global inequity is being reduced slightly. Well, the absolute global poverty is being reduced, but the inequality between countries grows. But that means that there are always elites who will profit from prosperity, and there are very many poor people, the vast majority of the population, who does not benefit from it that much. The whole debate between the 1% and the 99%, I can make out very little intention in the discussion to actually try to change something.
Life went on. Sometimes I would find time to visit my sisters, and I would often write them. My dearest, I've no time for myself the whole day. To make any visits, I can't even think about that. It is best to just bear everything with patience. But never tell a soul that I wrote this. For one, Papa lacks the awareness, and you would cause me great troubles if you did.
Auf jeden Fall ist Amalie Raiffeisen.
Amalia Raiffeisen certainly is the only one from the whole bunch of kids who paid a kind of price of life. Namely, never to be able to lead a personal and fulfilled private life.
Father finally did take an interest in my life, and we were able to talk. New, devoted personnel also carried his organization. Life continued, and we looked towards the future.
Raiffeisen is just as young today as he was 200 years ago. His ideas are up to date.
Das Ganze ja entstanden ist aus einer...
The whole thing was based on a conviction, namely that I want to help someone, but I'm not the Salvation Army. Rather, I want to help someone be successful. For me, Raiffeisen is an organization that is full of life. It is a respectful organization and a responsible organization.
Genossenschaften überhaupt haben
Cooperatives in general may probably have their best times still ahead. We have experienced misdevelopments, such as in the Soviet Union and the former GDR, in the form of the so-called mandatory cooperatives of the LPGs, the agricultural production cooperatives, and so on. But the people who come together in voluntary cooperatives, they have a future, And still, today, they often remain a better solution for a lot of problems. By the same token, I'm not saying that they are a solution to everything and for everyone.
You have brought me lots of joy. You have been a great advisor in times of sorrow and hardship. You have given me solace in times of virtue, borne my weakness with patience. My heart is so full of thanks for your true love, help, and care. For this, our Lord God will giveth you greatly.
Famous and highly respected, Friedrich Wilhelm Raiffeisen, my father, died on the 11th of March 1888.
Miss Amalie.
Mrs. Kramer.
Thanks to Father Raiffeisen, everything turned out well. He saved us hence.
You've saved yourself, Mrs. Kramer. He only showed you the path.
Amalia.
Martin.
And what will you do now?
Continue to work. Carry on. My father was convinced that when people cooperate, when they take their fate in their own hands, they will in time fare better. In that way, each individual can improve the whole world bit by bit.
In 2016, UNESCO declared the idea of cooperatives part of the intangible cultural heritage of humanity.